This is long-awaited legislation that will increase the obligations on banks, telcos, tech giants in the scam space. And so what the government is saying it will do is place mandatory obligations, new obligations in many cases, on these industries to do more to prevent, detect and respond to scams. And if they fail, there'll be big penalties. And the Minister, Stephen Jones, has told me that he's confident it will result in many more people receiving compensation.
Absolutely it will, because we'll clarify the law in this respect. We'll set obligations on the banks, high-level obligations within the Australian competition and consumer law, specific obligations sector by sector within the mandatory codes, fines and penalties for a breach of those obligations, and compensation if a consumer loses money because of it.
That's the Minister there. There is some detail missing. We still don't know what those specific obligations will be, but Stephen Jones has told me that there will be some specifics, banks having to, for example, offer confirmation of payee technology so that before you make a payment, when you're using the app or doing it online, you'll get a warning if the person you want to pay doesn't match the account details on the other end, things like that.
What could those obligations include?
Well, this is the key missing piece that we still don't have, but I've mentioned one of them there, confirmation of payee. There could be a number of others. So for banks, it could be a duty to act very quickly, notify authorities once they're told by a customer of a scam, but also to try and recover the money in a certain time frame. Obviously, time is of the essence when trying to get that money back. And also there will be, I think, a new obligation, according to the Minister, on receiving banks, because there's obviously two parties to a transaction. And so what has drawn the ire of scam victims and consumer groups for some time is that a receiving bank will get the money. It's controlled usually by a scammer, whether it's in their name or not, and the money's moved. And so the government really wants to see action on those accounts. They call them money mule accounts. And there'll also be duties on tech companies for verifying advertisers and removing scam content, and for telcos on cracking down on scam text messages and also blocking phone numbers where scams are originating from.
Okay, and there's also a big stick for companies that don't follow through. What sort of penalties are we talking about here?
Yes, eye-watering penalties in line with other consumer protections that exist. For serious non-compliance, there'll be penalties of up to $50 million. So that would be for the most egregious sort of offences. But there'll also be a lower penalty of $10 million. So really significant fines here, which the government says will be a big stick to ensure that the industries do comply with these serious changes.
Now, finally, Michael, you've interviewed a young Sydney man who sadly lost a fortune in a scam when he was buying his first property. Take us through what happened to him.
Yes, so he was in correspondence with his law firm, and unfortunately what seems to have happened is that scammers have infiltrated in some kind of way and they've impersonated his law firm, and this is called an email compromise scam. And so they knew a lot of the details of his property transaction, and then they told him to pay an account they controlled. And he was concerned with the change in bank details prior to settlement. So he actually went into his bank for help, and they told him they didn't see any issues with the transaction continuing after they asked him some questions. The bank says they put the onus on the customer to make sure those details are right. And unfortunately, when he paid this money, $280,000, it ended up being stolen. And his name is Ilya Fomin. Let's hear from him.
I lost over $280,000. So these are basically all my life savings that I really saved through all my work and so on, because I really wanted to settle. But of course now it means that I have a mortgage which will last for an extended period of time.